Welcome to the third session of TID. Today our guest is Vilovic, founder of Trooptravel. And in this session we are going to talk about how events and miles can be digitalized. But first, I would like our guest to present himself. Normally our seat cycles begin with 40 to 45 minutes talking with our guests. But as long as we are not many people, maybe, Denise, if you agree, the audience can interrupt your presentation and ask you questions, if you don't mind.
That's absolutely fine. Perfect, yes.
Okay.
I would encourage them actually to do that, yes.
So first of all, who are you professionally? How did you get where you are, and what kind of education you have? Like, it was, you knew that you were going to be working in my sector? Did you like new technologies? How did you arrive to this job you are developing now, and how did you founder Trooptravel?
Yeah, so actually, I mean, I've never worked in travel or meetings and events before. I've never studied anything related to that. And now today I am working in that industry. So there's a story behind that. And maybe briefly about myself. So I'm Dennis. I'm originally German, actually, but I live in Spain. I live here in a small village just outside of Madrid. And I studied economics in Germany. And very early, when I was younger, I mean, I always enjoyed traveling, right? I always was very curious to learn about different cultures, etc. So during my studies as well, I just started to look for internships, working in different countries. And I started actually then to work, spend some time in the Balkans and Croatia and Bosnia. And then when I finished my studies, I got a job actually in Jordan, in the Middle East. And I was always working basically in an industry which is called development cooperation, which is basically around helping countries with knowledge, basically to develop, so to say, you know. And my work was always related to work directly with public organizations, so with ministries, and to kind of increase the efficiency and the accountability on how these organizations are operating, and doing that by utilizing technology or data in their decision processes, etc. And that kind of work I did basically for 15 years. So I spent a number of years in the Middle East, as I said, in Jordan and Syria and Yemen. I met my wife actually while I was working in Jordan. So she's Spanish, worked there at the Spanish embassy, which brought me then to Spain. But then after 3 years being in Spain, we moved to Kenya for 6 years. And again, doing the same work there, helping organizations to be more efficient, basically in the way they're operating. And and then I kind of started founding Trooptravel. So happy to share the founding story around that, or I don't know, Maria, if I should stop here and share that later.
I think we should stop here, because you are a similar experience to our guest, the guest we have before. That is, you have like somehow an eclectic background in terms of education, in educational terms. I mean, people used to be quite specialized. I mean, economics, and then do a master in economics, and then a PhD in economics, and then just to apply for jobs in economics. But what we are seeing here is that the new market trends are demanding people who has the capacity to understand different logics and understand different disciplines. And I would like to know if you agree, or if this your experience, is your workers doing have the same eclectic background?
I definitely agree with that. And I think it's very valuable to actually apply experiences which you gained in other functions and other industries to let's say new industries. So I mean, basically what we are doing now while we are trying to grow the company, we are actually looking at other sectors, at the financial industry, and trying to learn from how our companies, how our ecosystems operating in these spaces, and what are elements which we could take into the meetings and event space as well, right? And that's, I think, very much related to digitalization, where it is kind of this turning of manual processes into, well, now digital processes. And I think when you start thinking about it, it's actually almost like reinventing the whole process and thinking about a certain process just differently. I mean, only because we have done a certain thing the same way for hundreds of years doesn't mean that when we digitalize this process, we should do it the same way. So I would definitely agree with you that it's actually, I think it's very valuable if you gain experiences, a lot of experience in different areas, and then you kind of take the best out of these different areas into
And we have to select specific skills. Which ones do you think are needed to develop a career linked to tourism digitalization?
I think
we have before, they were saying as curiosity is one of the main things you must have to be a good professional in the 21st century. Just
I totally agree with that. And why is that important to be curious? Because if you're curious, you keep on learning continuously. And I think that is something which is required from anyone now living in our current ages as well. Going ahead, we will need to continuously keep on learning, and I think that's a different approach than some generations earlier, basically, where, I mean, the learning part was at the beginning of your career. You maybe went to university, and that after university, well, now you stopped your learning, and now you just apply your learnings. But today, it is required from everyone that you just keep on learning continuously, because if you don't do that, you will fall behind. And like for me as a founder, I mean, a big part of my work is reading books, learning a lot of things, listening to webinars, and really, I mean, trying to grow yourself, because there's this saying, like, when you want to grow a company, you have to start with growing basically the founder, and then that helps you to grow the company. So curiosity is definitely basically a core thing, because it goes into this being eager to learn. And just like, I think, being able to think about outside of the box. And what I just said earlier with, like, I mean, why is a company like Uber has been successful? Because they have digitalized a process which was very manual, but they did it then in a different way, because technology allowed them to order a taxi now differently, much more convenient, much better. So they didn't just copy now the manual process and put that into technology. No, they reinvented the whole thing because they thought about it differently.
So, and apart from curiosity, when you are hiring people to be part of your company, what other skill are you looking for?
Well, I think in general, it's, I mean, like being like self-driven. I mean, I think you want people who are as well able to take decisions, and you rather have someone taking the wrong decision than not taking any decision. And I think specifically when we look at our company, for us, one key thing is always, I mean, the core values. It's do the core values of that person match with the core values we have in our company? Because in the end, I think if you believe in what we want to do, then you will do the right thing. If we empower you with the right tools, you will do the right thing. So the attitude, the core value thing for us is really, really important in that respect.
Okay, and now a very difficult question. How could universities help to develop these soft skills? I mean, a couple of years ago, soft skills were not something that was not even mentioned in the universities. and now they are a fundamental and a very important part of the extra curricula. So how can we help our students to develop curiosity, to be self-driving, and to have an attitude?
Yeah, I think maybe giving access to a lot of different experience. A different experience could be, for example, I think one thing is that when you bring people from all over the world together, there is access in the end to different cultures, to new things, so that it helps you to, again, learn something about things you potentially would not learn. Maybe as well collaborations with either partner universities, again, abroad potentially, which gives you an easy way to go into maybe a new country, into a new culture, to see other things. And you will realize that a lot of things which you take for granted are not normal in other places. So again, it broadens your horizon, right? And the same then even on a local level could be, well, by having collaborations with different types of businesses or different players in the ecosystem as well. In the end, that gives you that broad range and then helps you to maybe to link certain experiences together, which then create additional value.
Okay. Maybe we should talk later and be more specific about how we can do it. Maybe with this kind of webinars and meeting people like you have your own company and you can give us a lot of ideas about how to recruit the perfect candidates in the positions. But let's talk now about Trooptravel. What is Trooptravel?
Yeah,
we have here my students, and I'm sure they are willing to know what is Trooptravel. Just to let them know that you have a web page, so they can visit you and to know more if they are interested later. So what is Trooptravel?
Yeah, so maybe let me explain that by sharing a bit the founding story, which I think then makes it very clear what we are doing in the end. And so, as I said earlier, never worked in the travel industry or in the MICE industry whatsoever. Always worked basically as a consultant, creating efficiency and accountability and how organizations are operating. And then in 2014, I was living in Kenya at that time. And in summer, we traveled to Spain, and I wanted to see my best friend who was based in Munich in Germany. And we just wanted to come together for a weekend. Haven't seen each other in a couple of years. And then we said, okay, let's meet somewhere. It doesn't really matter where, but let's meet somewhere which kind of easy for both of us to reach, maybe cost effective for both of us to reach. So I went into Google, and I literally put into Google, like, I'm based in Madrid, my friend in Munich, where do we meet? And I thought, well, there must be some kind of service which just helps me now to tell me, like, should we meet in Lisbon or in Paris or in Milan or wherever it is. Couldn't find anything. So I did some manual research, and then in the end, we ended up meeting in Milan. So that was kind of my personal story. Then a few years later, actually a year later, I was working for a customer, which was a global organization. They were distributed all over the world, had 15,000 people around the world. And they were organizing a lot of in-person meetings of people coming from different markets. And then when I looked at how they were planning these meetings and actually how they decided on where to have that meeting, it reminded me very much of my own problem with my friend, that it was basically extremely manual. They didn't have all the data they needed to take the right decisions. So people were basically basing a lot of decisions on opinions rather than data. And that's where we said, okay, we need to help these meeting planners who are organizing meetings to give them actually all the data points they need very quickly, so that they actually can take decisions based on data rather than on opinion. So that's in the end what we have built. We've built a technology platform, which is in the end an aggregator of a lot of different data sources. So like, for example, you want to bring the people of, let's say, a group of 10 people from whatever, 5 or 10 different places together, and you want to figure out, well, what would be a good place, or maybe you already know where it is a good place, but you need certain data points, like what is the travel restrictions if we meet there? What is the COVID impact right now? What's the quarantine? What's the cost? What's the carbon footprint? The visa requirements? All these different things which are important. Well, we are giving that to you. Technology does that, aggregates that, and basically you are able then to take these decisions. So that's in essence what we're doing today for large corporations.
So how long does it take to organize this with your software?
Depends on the size of the group, but between a couple of seconds to a couple of minutes.
Oh my God. So this is the huge difference if you compare it with doing manually. Like manually, it would take hours, maybe weeks, and
Yes.
with your software, it takes seconds.
Exactly.
Okay, that's a huge difference. So,
Yes.
but how long did it take you to teach the program and the software to do these manual things in seconds? I mean, how is your learning process? Do you have informatic technicians in your team? How do you select the variables? In which point are you? Are you still learning what are the variables to make great meetings? Explain us more about this learning process.
Yeah, there has been a long
I
learning
just need
process.
like seconds. I mean, seconds. Yeah.
And
Okay.
we are still learning actually around that, but I think the approach we have taken, and maybe just going back to the very early beginning. So we are two founders. So we two people founded this company. It's myself, who's kind of with a business background, and then Leonard, who's my co-founder. He's based in South Africa. He has a technology background. But again, none of us has the industry background. None of us has the MICE experience whatsoever. So when we started putting the technology together, we, from the very beginning, started to look to have very close contacts with potential customers. So really talking to these corporations, talking to meeting planners within those corporations to understand how do they approach actually the meeting planning. And then very quickly we learned, well, there are actually a lot of factors which are influencing the decisions. Because at the beginning we thought, okay, if we give them the flight cost and the hotel cost, potentially that's enough. Very quickly we realized, no, that's not enough. Especially when we talk about corporate meetings, travel policy, very important thing, because a lot of these corporations have a travel policy which basically says, like, if a flight is longer than 5, 6, 7 hours, there's an upgrade to business class. So obviously that impacts the decisions you can take. Then we quickly realized as well, there's a huge interest around sustainability. So by working basically close with, at that point, they were not even customers, but just like with people in the industry, we learned a lot around these different factors. And then it's more execution. Then it's just, okay, how can we now bring in a sustainability calculation? And then basically that's a process which up till today, it's still ongoing. Today, obviously, I mean, the customers are paying, so that's good. We have a functioning business. But today we are still innovating together with our customer, because what we are doing has not been created using technology so far. It is really a manual process in the industry. And now actually with COVID, the whole thing has changed.
I think Sate wants to ask a question.
Please.
Hello, Denise. Hi, Maria.
Hi, Sate.
Hi.
Hi.
Did you want me to write the question, or should I just talk like this?
No, just keep going.
Okay. My question is basically, is your business model competing with anybody, or is it replacing anybody? And if it is competing with people, who are your main competition, and what is your vision for the future? Thank you.
Thanks, Sati, for that question. So what we are doing in the end, I mean, our service using technology has kind of been offered in the past by travel management companies, but it was very manual as well for them, because you can go to a travel management company and you can request an air study, for example. Then there is someone in that organization actually manually pulls that information together. So what we've just done, well, we have basically digitalized the whole process, right? I mean, it was manual before, now it's digital. technology does it. And so that's why, from a customer point of view, I mean, our customers are large corporations, but actually TMCs are very interested in that as well. The travel management companies as well are very interested in that. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, so it's a new business model then. It's not there's no competition in the market for you.
It is potentially a new category which we are opening. There were some, let's say, some small pieces of technology in the past which were doing something similar, but then not in the richness of the data set we are having currently.
I see. Thank you so much, Denise.
You're welcome.
So let's start, let's go to a little bit earlier. What are the variables that are critical to organize a meeting that you have learned that are critical? I mean, because as you said, like in seconds, there are a lot of the romantic part of the travel that is missing. What you learned about context and about human preference, or is just about cost and money, and tell us about human nature traveling in business, and what did you learn? Like, no, yes, the critical variables are just economic, the context is not important, or the place is not important. What do you know, or what did you learn about that?
I think that the place is very important, actually. It's the kind of the personal feeling about a location is very important. I mean, I always give that example. If I don't know, if tomorrow, let's say, a meeting in Somalia or Afghanistan would be kind of the cheapest place to come together, still you wouldn't go there potentially because of maybe the risk or something. So it's actually it's a combination of data sets you bring together. So we don't give you the answer, but we give you all the data so that you can take the right decision. And you normally, you don't look at cost only separately. You combine cost with travel time or with carbon footprint. Then you can say, like, am I willing to maybe pay 10% more, but reduce the total travel time of the group by 20%? So that's kind of how you would look at combining the data, and then you can do the same, obviously, with bringing your preferences in as well. Well, if you compare Seville with Barcelona and Madrid, whatever, I mean, you can bring this together. You have the data points. You can quickly see it doesn't make sense actually to go into those locations.
So the software gives you more than one option. I mean,
the software gives you the full data set for how many destinations you want to compare, 10, 20. So you have the full data set, you have the overview, you have a table basically then as a report with, let's say, 10 destinations with all these different data points, which then again would potentially take, I mean, more than weeks if you would do kind of a similar exercise, especially for larger groups.
So, would you give us like a real example that using your software, like a company using your software has organized this meeting? I don't know, if not maybe naming the company, but giving us a real example so we can understand how this software is working.
Yes, I can give you two kind of different but very interesting examples. Both of them are pre-COVID. One was a meeting of 300 people coming from 35 different places from all over the world. So a global meeting, a global conference. The interesting thing there was that out of the 300 people, 60 people were based in Chicago, so in one place, where that's where the headquarters of the company was. And then when you look at that, you would say, like, well, the cheapest place potentially to have that meeting, well, is Chicago, right? Because 60 people would not travel. They are there, so you don't have to pay the flights for them. We run the analysis, and then actually found out that if they would move the meeting to Boston, they would save 50,000 euros and 25% on the carbon footprint. And then we thought, well, this is totally counterintuitive. So we were actually going into the details and trying to understand what's the reason for that. And when we looked at the flight cost, it was very interesting. There was a massive difference. Boston was remarkably cheaper than Chicago, despite the fact that 60 people more would travel. And what we found out, that this company had a travel policy which said that if a flight is longer than 6 hours, it will be upgraded to business class. And Boston was so well geographically located that a lot of people were not allowed to fly business class. So the flight cost for an economy class obviously is lower. The carbon footprint is remarkably lower when you fly economy. So that basically would then offset all the additional hotel costs, and still you would have a massive saving by just moving everyone. Then, of course, the counter argument could be, well, do I want to, I mean, the time you spend on traveling now, is that worse? But that's again then the analysis you can do as the planner and the recommendation you can give. So that was one example. The other example, an incentive trip for a Fortune 100 company, so a massive global organization, 150 people. They always brought the people to Miami, and then we actually run an analysis, and we showed them if they have the meeting in Costa Rica instead of in Miami, they would save $400,000 and were able to upgrade the hotel from a 4 to a 5-star hotel. So again, a different example, and by just being able to have these data points, you are able to take these decisions.
Well, that's like it's I don't know, it's amazing. And how do you think this software can be used not only in your company, but maybe you can sell this technology to the MICE traditional sector? Are you thinking in this step, or what is your next steps with this software and with Trooptravel?
Yeah, we're definitely thinking along those lines, because I think planning any type of meeting has become remarkably more difficult today than it used to be before COVID. And for us as a non-industry expert, a meeting for me starts at 2 people. When we talk in the industry, I mean, especially in the corporations, the concept is that a meeting starts only at 10 people, because that's where you can then get a group discount for hotels, etc. But even if you think about bringing 2 people together today, if you think about someone is maybe in the US, someone is in Spain, well, and you have to bring them together in person. Well, the first question today would be actually, where can you bring them together? Where can they meet? Because of the travel restrictions, because of the quarantine. And actually, there are only a few places around the world where people can come together right now. And that's again, extremely difficult to answer, because that's kind of a new criteria where even, I mean, all the professional meeting planners out there, we don't have the experience on playing around with these data sets, because it's a new data requirement in the end. So that's where technology helps. And then for us, I mean, the way we are going is definitely making the technology available for everyone, for anyone who plans a meeting. And then it's just a matter on how we adjust the business models then for the different categories.
I think we have Pedro that he was asking.
Maria, how are you?
Fine, thank you.
Yes, I have a question. I work in the cruise ship industry, and I was just browsing around your website, and I think it's kind of amazing what you can do in the future, and you can save a lot of money for those, and it will help a lot of in the organization of the, you know, when we're receiving guests. We have like 24 hours where everybody comes different times. Everybody comes, yes, like it's so unorganized. And I think it's very interesting. What are you doing here? And you can actually help the company save a lot of money. Where you can actually be, okay, this port is going to be more cheaper for you, for the company, for them to be able to let the guests come in the ship. So wow, congratulations. I was just.
Thanks, Pedro. And I think that's actually very interesting what you said. And we thought about that as well, that there are some interesting opportunities looking at cruise ships, because you are in different harbors. So it would be interesting, basically running this analysis, running all their harbors you're looking at, and actually identifying, well, maybe I should jump on your boat rather, let's say, in Lisbon than in Barcelona, because I can save 20%, or the flight will be faster, or whatever it is. So, I mean, we as well think that there's an opportunity.
Enhance the guest experience, because trust me, the embarkation day is one of the worst days, because everybody complains, everybody's tired, everybody gets they're in the bad mood, and if they can save a little bit of money, trust me, it will be much easier and people will be more happier. So yes.
Great.
We are doing business here. New lines of your model.
Nice. Thank you, Dennis. It's very interesting. Thank you very much for your knowledge, for sharing it.
Thanks, Pedro. Thanks. Happy to hear that it's valuable.
I have another question. It's a little bit more technical, but I think it's interesting. How do you select data sources? I mean, this software needs data. You need good quality data. How do you select the sources to so your software can run in a very efficient way?
Yeah, so maybe quickly talking about the data streams, we have kind of three different types of streams. One is external data, which we get through partner sources. The second one is our internal data. And the third one is actually the customer data. And then by overlaying these three streams, that's where it kind of then becomes interesting, because normally that was always very difficult to bring these different data sets together. And just to give you an example, a lot of our customers have their office location in our technology, because if they have smaller meetings, at least in pre-COVID times, and maybe as well afterward, like when we are able to have in-person meetings again, people just prefer to have the meeting in locations where they have offices. So that's kind of a pre-requirement. And that's, I mean, you just activate it and it shows, it compares you then basically the different office location, which as well historically would have been just more difficult to do that manually. And how do we then select the data points is basically recommendations by customers. So when we learn, when we innovate together with customers and they come up with a request, for example, when we started on the carbon footprint analysis, the first customer who brought that up was actually a tobacco company. And then we said, well, okay, I mean, we can do this. This is calculation, right? But whom are you using currently for your carbon footprint analysis? They gave us the source, and then we started integrating with that source. So that's kind of how we well, basically added those data feeds. And then as well through our own research, or whenever we see there is some interesting data feeds coming in, then we bring that in. And there are a lot of services which are very specialized. For example, VAT claims. There are companies who are dedicated, whose only job is to help you to claim your VAT back. For us, the VAT claim is just one little element of the whole service we're offering. So then we just bring in these data feeds from existing suppliers, and that's kind of then again how the value is created by aggregating just like all these different points.
How much time do you spend selecting the sources? Is a critical part of your job or not? What is more demanding in this kind of business model? I mean, creating selecting the variables, selecting the sources, finding the clients, explaining people what your software can do.
Yeah, I think there are a couple of things. I think the most difficult thing is that we are changing behavior. We are offering a service which has been done differently, basically, has been done manually always. Now it's technology, and it requires kind of, well, we are doing things differently. So behavioral change is always very complicated. And so that starts already when you try to sell the technology to someone, because you have to explain them, well, what are you actually doing? And people, I mean, it took us a while to develop that pitch where actually then people understood what are we actually really doing. And the moment they understand it, you can see how like a light bulb comes up, and they're like, oh, wow. So, but that is as well another challenge. But in the end, it's really, as I said, like linked to the behavioral change we are trying to do.
Okay, and I think you have, like you were talking about your company, and some of you are located in Spain, some persons are located in France. How this company is run in this 21st century where like the human resources are not located in the same office, like how do you maintain the group? How do you I wouldn't like to say control, but how do you, how do you build the team? How do you communicate? I mean, I don't know if you can explain us these kind of things that are quite different from a traditional company.
Yeah, I mean, basically everything started with the fact, well, that the two founders, so myself and Leonard, I mean, I'm based here in Spain, and Leonard is based in South Africa. So from the very beginning, we worked like this. I mean, we worked virtual, and that's then basically how we started onboarding all the other people we have now. I mean, we are still small, but we have people in the UK, in the US, in Australia, and France, kind of all over the place. And since we have always worked like that, I mean, it works fine for us. And I think one of our core values within the organization is trust. Because if you don't trust the people you work with, then I mean, yeah, you have to control them, and then controlling is very difficult. And the other thing is as well, for us, it's about the output. It's not the work. If you are very efficient and you manage to do whatever you have to do in 20% of the time, well, that's great for you, and it's good for us. So it's really, I mean, it's just, I think, I don't know if it's different management techniques, potentially not, but since we have started like this, like with a lot of trust and always working virtual, and so it just worked very well for us. And that's now, since we are in this pandemic, well, a lot of companies had to move into such kind of setting. Well, for us, it didn't impact us at all because we have always operated like that. And then on the other positive thing is, that today I can hire people anywhere in the world. So I don't have to look now, do I have the talent I need around my office? Because first of all, we don't have an office. And secondly, well, I mean, why should I not hire someone in, I don't know, in Panama? Why not? I mean, if they have the skills I need, that's great for me. So that's how we operate. And then obviously we use a lot of, I mean, virtual technologies. And maybe one thing to add there, which I think is quite interesting, that when you compare actually companies, and maybe more established companies than ourselves, but companies who are operating virtually with companies who run in kind of an office system, these virtually operated companies normally have 3 times higher expenses on travel than the ones with the offices. Which again, then if you look about us coming out of this pandemic, where potentially more people are working from home, it actually will result into more travel in the future, because we understand the value of coming together, of these in-person meetings, but as well we are flexible because we know it is about that we are coming together, and it really doesn't matter too much where it is. So if we can optimize that, better.
Okay, so you were telling about curiosity, self-driving, attitude. How do you select the staff? I mean, in an interview, what do you ask for? I mean, imagine I'm a candidate. What will you ask me?
Yeah, very good question. Actually, our experience is still very limited, to be honest, because the people we have onboarded so far were either recommendations or came in through internships, and I mean, we have people actually on the team who came through the Ostelea masters as well.
The students will, yeah.
So that's as well very exciting, and it is in the end again what I said earlier, for us the core values, that's potentially the most important thing. This are you willing to learn? Are you I mean, can we trust you? Do you fit in? No, and this is much more important for us than potentially your experience. I mean, there are obviously some jobs when we talk about the technical side, then the experience is very important. But on the business side, I mean, the experience is great if you have that. If you have a lot of experience in the industry, that's great. But it's really about these soft skills, which are very, very important for us. Because at the stage where we are at, I mean, we don't need the kind of the experts of a certain category. I mean, you actually, I mean, on a daily basis, we do so many different things. And we need almost like more these generalists who are able to then become an expert in certain areas as we go along.
So I don't have any more questions. I must tell you that I'm really impressed about the 2 seconds planning of the meeting with your software. I'm still in shock. And now it's the turn of the audience. I think probably you have a lot of different questions to ask Denise. So now is your turn. Don't be shy. This is a great opportunity to learn about a very important trend in the sector nowadays, something that is going to be the future. So just ask questions, and the floor is yours. It's your time.
I have another question, Maria.
Nada,
Yes,
keep going.
I'm very interested. How do you keep up with in our society? We're like changing prices, changing everything. How do you make sure that your clients gets always the best deal? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Yes, that.
I mean,
Wow. It's impressive what you're doing.
thanks, Pedro. I think, I mean, around the pricing, I mean, in the end, how do you price a service, what we are doing? I mean, it's very difficult for the one who sets the price and for the one who pays it, because since it is kind of a new service, it almost doesn't matter what price you select, because you don't have the baseline. You don't know. I mean, it's very subjective, right? So I mean, I remember when we did our first pricing, it was more like, okay, let's think. Well, let's give a number. Let's see if someone will pay for it. And then we realized, well, people are paying for that. And then we just we started doubling the prices. So which obviously meant, like, I mean, the value we're creating is remarkably higher. And only now we are providing tools like really like calculators on how much money you would save, or not only money but time and all these things. So it has been as well in that respect quite a journey for us. Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Thank you very much. You answered the question. Yeah, you're providing us services that you're making people's lives easy. So yes, I completely agree with you.
Carolina, there are some people asking questions in the chat. Denise, I don't know if you can. Carolina Garcia, how do you know the new trend directions for your industry before they appear? I mean, it was intuition. It was how did you did it?
Yeah, good question. I think one thing we have done from the very beginning, which was just helping us as well to gain knowledge in the industry, was participating actually in a lot of events. I mean, there are some industry organizations which run a lot of events, which brings these people we are selling to together, and where it's all about like learning from each other. And when you participate in this conference as well, then you get a feeling for trends. You talk to people, and that's then in the end what gives you an idea. And then that's again what we are doing up till today, really keeping a close contact with our customers to understand what are their challenges. And when COVID started, well, immediately we understood, okay, the thing is changing, and now actually our analysis has to change, because there are now these very important data points around, as I said, restrictions, quarantine, or COVID impact, or whatsoever. So, and that I mean came then basically through maintaining a very close relation with customers.
And we have other question. Sorry that Durance asked, what's the most challenging project you had in terms of managing costumes and cultures? And what skills do you use to overcome that challenge, those challenges? Thank you very much.
That's a very
yeah, it's a very
deep question.
Very deep question.
I remember I worked 6 years. I mean, that's before founding the company, but I worked 6 years in Kenya, and I worked with the government there, and that was actually very challenging. It was so different, the approach to accountability and efficiency, how I was used to it, like having seen it in Europe or even in the Middle East. And that was very, very challenging. So, I mean, in the end, it is really, trying to understand the other person, trying to understand why people are doing certain things the way they do it. And then actually becomes understandable. And maybe to give a concrete example, and corruption is a big thing in a lot of countries all over the world. And when you work with governments, I mean, you really get an idea. You see things which actually sometimes you think, like, I don't want to see those things. And I remember that, you can buy certain titles or certain positions within the government. It's basically an investment. So people would raise money within their local community to then actually become a minister. They would pay for it. It's almost like raising funding for a startup. And then when the moment they are in that power position, they become corrupt because they have to repay all the investments. And then when you think about this, that you can understand why people think like this, or why they become corrupt. Well, because they look at kind of the work differently than we would maybe look at our expectations of politicians. But so the point I'm trying to make is really, try to understand the motivations of people's behavior. And I think when you try to put yourself into their shoes, it gives you some perspectives, which maybe just as well opens your own horizon. I don't know if that example was very good, or like if that answers your question. I hope yes.
Well, I think it was. Okay, so Margit, hi Denise. Have you helped any aviation company to develop a strategic? Thank you.
So we were part of an acceleration program called Hangar 51, which is an acceleration program organized by IAG. So IAG is the mother company of Iberia, of British Airways, Whirling, and I think some other airlines as well. And they're part of One World Alliance. So actually, we did a proof of concept with One World Alliance on utilizing our technology, helping people to find kind of the best meeting location within that network of airlines. So that's something which, again, we feel it's an interesting use case, and that's a bit the work we've done directly with aviation or with airline companies.
Okay, so Carolina Garcia, how do you adapt your product according to the regulations that are established? It is very difficult to have an international business. How can we not break up a company and have the same line of action?
Yeah, I think that is true. It is actually very difficult to have an internationalized business today, and that again shows us that the way we look at how businesses are registered, organized, etc., should change, because the kind of the environment has changed. There are a lot of companies where people are all over the world, but our kind of the legal structures we have for companies does not reflect the reality anymore. So that is a challenge. And okay, we are as a company registered here in Spain. Again, I'm actually the only person of the company in Spain. Everyone else is around the world, but so it is a difficult element, and we are looking actually at how can we solve that for us. So Carolina, I can't give you a proper answer there, but just basically, I think the key message I want to say is that it is just an example of how societies, how structures needs to evolve, because today the requirements are different.
So Susan Jackson say, hi Denise, nice to meet you, and what your company does, it's very interesting, and the type of technology helps people to make traveling easier and trustworthy. Right now, due to the pandemic, it's kind of difficult to know how everything will evolve. So what are the projections or visions of your company in 1 or 2 years from now?
Yeah, I think there are a few trends we see. So one thing is that, as I said earlier, like the way we are planning meetings and events, it will be different, because actually, while historically, I mean, we were potentially traveling too much already, like it was very easy for everyone to travel. But now, I mean, first of all, we have shown, or companies have shown, that, hey, we can do business with no travel. So there will be less travel in the future around that, or it will be more. I mean, there's a requirement to measure the return on investment of your travel or of your in-person meetings as well. And I think then, talking about in-person meetings, as I said earlier, there are more people, there are more companies allowing people to work from home, to work from anywhere, which then again requires completely a different approach to how do we now have to bring people together, because now it becomes actually very valuable, like a very rare resource to have an in-person meeting. While historically you were every day in the same office, it was very easy just to meet someone in person. Today it will be different. So again, there is an opportunity to optimize, to help on the planning side of these kind of in-person meetings, etc. And then the third trend, what we've seen already, is the hybrid mechanism. The hybrid meetings, hybrid events they will stay. So what we've seen from our customers as well, we have a lot of large pharmaceutical companies, and they see a huge value of the hybrid component. And basically the value these companies see is that the outreach of their content, I mean, they're reaching now much more people than they used to reach with in-person meetings only. It's clear as well, as a participant, well, the real value you will only get when you are there in person. But if you're only purely interested into the learning component, well, then hybrid, I think then a virtual participation can be very good.
In that sense, that we are meeting with important hotel chains, and they are reorganizing their hotel spaces for hybrid events, because they know it's the future. It's not only because the COVID, but in the same direction you were saying that you are seeing this trend. I can tell you, and I can tell the audience, that important hotel chains are reorganizing the spaces so they can make hybrid events. I don't know if any of you have any other question. Okay, Denise, I don't know if probably you have LinkedIn, and if any of them, if any of our audience would like to contact you because they are curious, or maybe because they want your services, or to know more about your professional career and your company, how can they contact you?
Yeah, I mean, happy. I invite everyone to reach out to me on LinkedIn as well. If you want to reach me via email, my email is dennis@trooptravel.com, so very easy. And yeah, so those would be LinkedIn and email, I think, are the best ways to get in contact with me. Okay,
so are you sure you don't have any other question? No, 1 minute. No, sometimes we are shy when we have to, myself, I'm shy, and probably there are a lot of persons willing to ask questions, but okay. Thank you very much. Okay, so in any case, if you have further questions, you can contact Denise. And I would like to invite you to our next session of our digitalization cycles. That will be next month. It will be announced in our webpage, and we'll have this kind of talks. So really welcome to join us in the next session, and very, very thanks and thank you very much, Dennis, for sharing your experience. I think your company is a very great idea. I'm really shocked about what you can do, and I hope our students and future students have learned a lot about your experience. So just goodbye and thank you, and thanks to the public for your questions and for sharing your time with us.
Thanks for having me, Maria.
Okay. So, bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.